This weekend, the National Museum of Ireland will unveil a remarkable piece of history as the famous Catalpa Flag goes on public display to mark the 150th anniversary of the daring Fenian rescue mission. The flag, the largest in the national collection, played a pivotal role in one of the most dramatic prison breaks of the 19th century, an event with strong Clare connections. Earlier on, I chatted about this with Brenda Malone. Brenda is Curator of Military History at the National Museum of Ireland.
So this weekend is the 150th anniversary of the rescue of 6 Fenian prisoners from Fremantle Prison in Western Australia, which was a British penal colony. And those prisoners had been there since about 1867, when they had been convicted for crimes of treason after the 1867 rebellion here in Ireland. But the story of the Catalpa is maybe something that your listeners know. It's really a very dashing story, a very exciting story, a very exciting event in history, and it's kind of known as the most famous and the most famous prison break in certainly of that era. And the flag of the ship, the Catalpa, which is the ship that rescued the Fenians, is going on display here at the National Museum of Ireland in Collins Barracks for the anniversary, for the 2 days, the Saturday and Sunday. It's something that we can't display long term, and something that we can't actually display in our normal galleries because of its huge size. It's over 4.5 metres long, it's over 3 metres tall. So we actually needed to book what we call the Palatine Room. It's the big ballroom or event space, to be able to lay it out on the floor there and allow people to be able to come and see it for the anniversary.
Okay, and the rescue mission in 1876, there's obviously a strong Clare link through Thomas McCarthy Fennell, and it's often described as one of the most daring prison breaks of its time. What made it so extraordinary?
I think it's because the whole push behind the Republican movement had really been kind of not quite killed off, but it had certainly been very damaged in Ireland after the loss of all of these men. And it was really the Irish American groups like Clan na Gael that were keeping the light alive. And it was the rescue of these Fenians that kind of reignited all of that. It was such, again, as you say, a daring escape, and so successful. And it really embarrassed the British authorities, but it really gave a real moral boost back to the Republican movement to keep fighting for the cause of Irish independence.
And when they got on the ship, it was pursued by a British ship which threatened to fire. How close, Brenda, did this come to becoming an international incident, and how pivotal was the raising of the American flag in that standoff?
It was absolutely pivotal. So when the Georgette, the captain of the Georgette, which was the British ship, they came to the ship and they insisted that the captain hand over the prisoners that he was holding. It was Captain George Anthony was captaining the Catalpa ship, and he stated that there was no prisoners here, only free men. And the Georgette eventually did threaten to fire on the Catalpa in order to stop them from leaving. And it was at that point that Anthony ordered the hoisting of the flag, which is the flag of the US at the time. It was the 36 stars. And basically informed the captain of the Georgette that if you fire on this ship, you were creating an international incident, or basically declaring war on the United States of America, which was enough to make the Georgette think again and turn away and leave, which allowed the Catalpa to escape. So it's very... Well, museum stores are always full of great treasures, and everything has its own story. This flag in particular is not just a witness to the history of this event, but it's actually at the very centre of it. So that makes it really, really unique and really exciting to see.
I mentioned the Clare link through Thomas McCarthy Fennell. What do we know of him, and how important was his role in the rescue?
Well, it seems that Thomas McCarthy Fennell actually was the person who came up with the idea of buying a ship and converting it into a whaling ship, or disguising it in some way so that it had legitimate business in those waters. So that's why they decided to convert the Catalpa, which had been a merchant ship, into a whaling ship so that it could move through international waters without causing so much suspicion. So he was really, really central to that.
And the flag played a crucial role in the success of the mission, obviously.
Obviously, yeah. So it's absolutely, we would see it as the reason why the Catalpa actually did manage to make his escape. And it was cherished by the captain of the ship for 20 years before he gave it to members of Clan na Gael in in Philadelphia at the time, and it was them then that kept that flag for all of that time until they decided to donate the flag to the National Museum of Ireland in 1972.
And how important was the Catalpa rescue in the broader story of Irish independence, and what kind of impact actually did it have at the time, both in Ireland and among the diaspora in America?
Well, as I said, it was really another push, a real kind of reignition of the Irish Republican movement, because, as I said, it had been not quite crushed, but it had been severely damaged by the loss of all of the leaders and the men who had been involved in the 67 rising. So it was like a moral victory, it really kind of gave people a morale boost that it was possible to continue on with the movement. And a lot of the people that were rescued or were Fenians or involved in the movements at the time were also instrumental again in laying the foundations for the next big event, which was the 1916 Rising, which probably overshadows the Fenian movement in the 1800s and the Catalpa rescue a little bit. But yeah, it's an incredibly exciting story and was a really important part in getting that movement going again for the next phase.
And you did mention this is the first time the flag has been displayed since 1972. Why has it been so rarely seen?
Well, it did go on display in Australia. It went out on loan to Fremantle Prison when it was converted into a museum. But as I said, the flag is over 4.5 metres long and over 3 metres tall. So we had taken the flag out some years ago to have a look at it to see if we could put it into the Soldiers and Chiefs exhibition. But its sheer size means that when you conserve that and when you mount it and frame it or get it into a case, it meant that there was actually no space anywhere in the museum, in the galleries, to be able to display such a huge object. So so that's why it was. We just put extra effort into putting that on display in the Palatine Room, because we're not putting it into a case. We're putting extra security around it, but it will be actually very just much there for people to come and see and be really, really close to it.
Well, it is a fascinating story, and one perhaps not too many people have heard about, and a fascinating artefact to view, which you can see this weekend. The Curator of Military History at the National Museum of Ireland, Brenda Malone. Brenda, thank you so much for telling us about that.